Hello, dear friends. Patience and perspective gives us strength to carry on through life's inevitably difficult times. We are in the last days. If we don't hit in a straight line toward our goal, we will tend to run in circles. If you pray for rain, you also have to deal with mud. Shadows break at the dawn of a brighter day. Opinion piece. Havana Syndrome. Directed energy weapons. Attacks on light workers. Microwaves suspected. Could it be electromagnetic energy? Could it be a secret weapon of Nikola Tesla? Famous psychic predicts the end of war. Consent in Spain over shortage of food supplies. Russian troops advance in Ukraine stalled. NATO again rejects no-fly zone. Russia works with China to create an alternative SWIFT. Giant anomaly discovered off the coast of Peru. Big changes occur while the world is distracted by war. IMF calls for a broad agreement in Argentina to refinance its loan. Let's start. Directed energy weapons attacks continue against key light workers, according to Karen Stewart, who talks about the famous Havana Syndrome. In Canada and Australia, recent peaceful protesters reported being hit with some kind of mysterious energy weapon that gave them headaches, deafness, memory loss, and nausea. A group of scientists produced an intelligence report identifying pulsed electromagnetic energy as and ultrasound as symptoms of the Havana Syndrome suffered by diplomats in recent years. Pulsed and directed radiofrequency energy is the most plausible mechanism to explain these cases that affect health. The Pentagon attributed the Havana Syndrome to a new weapon. This weapon causes hearing problems, severe migraines, affect the sense of balance, and these symptoms can persist for months, depriving soldiers of their reflexes. Ridiculous theories have been promoted, such as that the ones were from sonic crickets. What they have not said is that the famous inventor Nikola Tesla created the basic concept of electromagnetic weapons and built many effective and dangerous devices. When he died in the 40s, a three-letter agency intervened and confiscated all his documents and inventions. Various entities and contractors have been developing these weapons for decades, both large-sized weapons and anti-personnel and handheld weapons. Contractors have secretly sold these weapons to anyone with the money and to wealthy individuals with ill intent. Local officials are bought off or told to stay out of it because it's a federal program, in quotes. Definition. Havana Syndrome refers to a set of high signs and symptoms initially reported by US and Canadian embassy staff in Cuba, dating back to late 2016, and subsequently in some other countries. In 2021, cases of the syndrome were found in embassy workers and spies in other countries such as Austria, Germany, and the US itself. In 2017, then President Trump accused Cuba of perpetrating unspecified attacks that caused these symptoms. The US subsequently reduced its embassy staff to a minimum in response to the alleged attacks. In 2018, several US diplomats in China reported similar problems to those stated in Cuba, as well as undercover agents operating in and negotiating with other countries on ways to counter covert operations. Subsequent studies with the allegedly affected diplomats in Cuba subjects published in the journal JAMA in 2018 found evidence that the diplomats had suffered some kind of brain injury, but were unable to determine the cause of these injuries, while there is no expert consensus on the cause of the symptoms. And co-author of the JAMA study considered the use of microwave weapons as a prime suspect. A committee of experts from the U.S. National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine concluded in December 2020 that microwave energy, specifically directed pulse radio frequency energy, appears to have been the most, all this is in quotes, appears to have been the most plausible mechanism to explain these cases, but that any possible cause remains within speculative context. As of May 2021, a total of 430 cases of Havana Syndrome related brain damage had been identified in US diplomats, spies, and defense officials, according to a publication in the New York Times. Rumors of war. First, the advance of Russian troops in Ukraine stalls, although shelling persists. Second, NATO again rejects a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Third, a no-fly zone is not possible. The Defense Department said Thursday that a no-fly zone imposed by NATO would do little to prevent some of Russia's attacks inside Ukraine, after some members of Congress suggested the measure. Fourth, Russian Air Force singular planes transfer people from Moscow to the Ural Mountains. Fifth, Ukraine requests more lethal weapons from the European Union. Sixth, Ukraine defends itself with cheap but lethal Turkish drones. Despite 3 weeks of Russian bombardment, Ukraine defends its cities with Turkish-made drones that attack with a lethal efficiency that has surprised Western military experts. 7th, Ukraine to establish a social credit system with digital identity for control. Notice. First, US wants China not to help Moscow in Ukraine. The United States expressed concerns Thursday that China could help Moscow with military equipment as the war entered its 4th week. Second, Putin wants that army Ukraine pushed the West at risk. Third, Russia's richest man wants Putin, in quotes, "We cannot go back to 1917. We would experience consequences for decades." Fourth, Russia reveals new details about biological laboratories in Ukraine. Fifth, Russia calls for an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council on biolabs. Refugees. First, Poland receives 2 million Ukrainian refugees. Second, Belgium expects 200,000 Ukrainian refugees to arrive. Third, the influx of Ukrainians will become a major challenge for Germany. 4. 80% of houses destroyed in Mariupol. 30,000 citizens have escaped. The destruction in the Ukrainian city of Mariupol under Russian siege for the last 16 days is colossal, and it is estimated that 80% of the houses have been destroyed, with 30,000 people have been able to leave the city in the last 2 days with their own transport. Fifth, humanitarian operation. Russia detailed that its military ensured the evacuation of a total of 42,992 civilians this day. In addition, it specified that the inhabitants of the city received 134 tons of humanitarian aid, including basic necessities, food and medicines. Sixth, famous psychic predicts the end of the war in Ukraine and Putin's death. The winner of the Battle of the Psychics of the Russian TV channel TNT, Maxim Gordev, has predicted that there will be 3 waves of attacks in Ukraine. During the first, Russia would use ordinary citizens, so-called cannon fodder or human shields. During the second wave, it would use Belarusian soldiers, with whom Ukrainians would also quickly engage. And then would come the third wave, which would be the final one. Then Putin would send in professional mercenaries. The psychic predicts that Ukraine would win this war. In addition, Gordev said that the death card falls on Putin, who is now ill, but his health is protected by the best doctors. Economy. First, concern in Spanish markets about the shortage of fresh products. Second, banks faced headwinds despite interest rate hikes. Third, stock market rises after central banks tighten monetary policy. Fourth, gold rises. Gold rose for a second day as investors weighed the trajectory of the Fed's rate tightening cycle against the risk to growth from the war in Ukraine. 5. Some of Russia's creditors have received their dollar bond payments. 6. The Russians have up to $230 billion stashed abroad in Swiss banks. Europe. First, war spurs European demand for US drones and missiles. Second, the Bank of England raises interest rates again to curb inflation. Third, ESA breaks off its collaboration with Russia. The European Space Agency broke off Thursday its collaboration with its Russian counterpart, Roscosmos, in the Mars exploration program ExoMars, and thus delayed the launch of that mission until 2026 at least. Roscosmos assured that Russia is going ahead with its plans and will set its own expedition to Mars. Payment system. First, Russia and India study currency exchange scheme. Russia and India are discussing a direct exchange scheme for their national currencies to ensure that bilateral trade continues despite the sanctions imposed. Second, India may import 50 million barrels of crude oil from Russia. Third, SWIFT payment system replacement. The clearing house, as well known rival partners, is working with Wells Fargo on a cross-border payment system, specifically designed to support digital commerce that will replace SWIFT. The system, known as real-time payments (RTP) service, would facilitate the real-time transfer of digital currency between eligible accounts. Fourth, Russia works with China to create an alternative SWIFT. Iran and Turkey entered the new system. Putin is setting up new systems to transfer money and use Chinese currency to buy and sell oil and gas. Putin also agreed to send nuclear missiles to Iran to balance power in the Middle East. At the moment, the Russian financial system is in chaos as it faces a national debt crisis and the possibility of creditor default. Putin-sized 500 large foreign-owned airliners that were sitting idle at Russian airports after Western sanctions. He has also begun seizing all foreign bank accounts, holdings and companies that made moves against Russia. Fifth, other players in the war could include North Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Iran, India, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Australia, Canada, and a variety of European nations. The public will be told that it is all due to wars caused by power-hungry tyrants, but the real reason will be decisions made by the globalists to fulfill their long-term agenda of population control and the creation of a totalitarian system. Americas. The IMF calls for a broad agreement in Argentina to refinance the loan granted. The International Monetary Fund called for a political support that reaches several political forces when referring to the bill being debated by the Senate to refinance a debt of $44 billion granted to the preceding administration. Second, teachers and police clash in a day of protest in Bolivia. Bolivian teachers again clashed with the police on Wednesday in a few days of protest led by educators who are demanding a larger education budget from the government. Third, 100 dead dogs found in an abandoned garbage dump in the state of Mexico. Fourth, Lenten winds revived the Gaga in Haiti. The imminence of Holy Week, with its characteristic liturgies, revives the custom of abandoning oneself to the Gaga, one of the most emblematic dances in Haiti, which has spread to the neighboring Dominican Republic. With strong roots in Voodoo, Gaga is the name given to the dance as well as to the group that performs it, and that takes to the streets, moving with mystical frenzy to the rhythm of the stick, the alcahuete, the whistle, the bamboo, and the singing voices. Fifth, gigantic anomaly discovered off the coast of Peru. A Google Earth image of the ocean floor shows a sizable circular anomaly that some believe could be a submerged UFO, 7 kilometers in diameter. The strange discovery was made by the UFO researcher Scott C. Waring. Sixth, conspiracy theory seekers look at the classified Obama-era files. While some requests were for information about Barack Obama's origins, others investigate topics such as Osama bin Laden's burial at sea or Pizzagate. Curious. A couple finds a pearl of great value after ordering a portion of clams in a restaurant. Second, full worm moon. The March full moon reaches its fullness today, Friday. The worm moon refers in Native American tradition to the thawing of the earth after winter, which allows worms to emerge in the meadow. Third, the moon is artificial. More than a decade ago, David Icke gave information that the moon was an artificial structure with an exterior made of metal so that all the craters have the same depth regardless of their circumference. Also, NASA hit the moon with metal debris and it rang like a bell for hours, giving evidence that it is hollow. Fourth, volunteers ease the loneliness of the elderly by giving free rides on sofa bikes around the world. In cities around the world, volunteers are taking the elderly and people with disabilities for rides on special tricycles to enjoy the outdoors. Cycling Without Age started in Denmark in 2012 when two kind-hearted volunteers wanted to help other people with lesser abilities to ride bicycles. They designed a tree show with a bench for two people at the front, where they could sit and enjoy the ride. Major changes. Threat to the welfare society. In the last 2 years, the health crisis and conflicts, such as those in Russia and Ukraine, have caused a major disruption in the functioning of the world economy. The destruction of world wealth has been shocking in this period, according to Argentine economist Alfredo Zayat. Second, great changes are occurring while the world is distracted. The spectacle of the show that is published daily in the media has distracted the world from truly historic changes. And what we are witnessing is the end of a war that has been waged for thousands of years. A great campaign to end poverty, stop the destruction of the environment, and expand to the universe is about to begin, according to Benjamin Fulford. Third, collective compassion. There has been a worldwide outpouring of collective compassion since the beginning of the war for all the people who are suffering, who have lost loved ones, who have lost their homes, and who have displaced their entire lives. We, humankind, are experiencing stress overload due to our emotional response. This is understandable. However, for your own well-being, every now and then take a break somewhere and breathe in the sense of balance and calmness of your spirit for a while. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.